these were the questions that I would say as I engaged with people last year or throughout the year. I had, believe it or not, over 200 churches contact me since I spoke a year ago asking questions about donor development. And one thing that I think that told me is that donor development is important in church and we don't spend enough time on it, because what I thought is pretty common sense, how to treat people nicely and how to thank people when they give or show return on their money. Kind of these were the three things that I felt like I could sum them up as. Who should be focusing on donors? Who in your church should be focusing on donors? What should the focus be? And when should we talk about giving? And I think that the next examples that I give will be kind of like last year was maybe a 50,000 foot view. This is maybe a 30,000 foot view. So I have lots of pictures in here. I actually took the pictures. I didn't have to like scan them or anything, so they might not be super legible, but my goal in putting the pictures on the slides is that you can see and kind of feel and experience maybe what a donor would experience. So that's what's up here. I did bring some examples, so at the end, if you want to come up and look, there's tons of examples down here, and then I'll also send you a packet of stuff if you want to see stuff there as well. So who should be focusing on donors? I definitely say pastor first. There's tons of different people that could be, but how many of you are lead teachers, lead pastors in the room, founding pastors? Raise your hand so I see you. Okay, if you're not the lead pastor, your lead pastor definitely is the person who should be the primary fundraiser. I am not the primary fundraiser at our church. Even though we do have a huge budget to raise and we do have a big capital campaign and we have lots of special giving initiatives that we do, I am not the primary fundraiser. Our teachers are, our lead teachers, because those are the people that teach spiritually. They have spiritual authority on weekends. So in my opinion, your pastor has to be bought into this. Three things that I would say that pastors should kind of focus on, or we as donor development people should kind of encourage our pastors to focus on. Number one, giving will increase if you as the lead teacher are leading with a clear and compelling vision. What does that mean? That means it's focused, it's understandable, it's something that people want to get behind. So a clear and compelling vision is very important. Trust in leadership. Leadership has to be trustworthy, they have to be open to questions, they have to be accessible. So a great example of this, actually, I work on the side and do 3 or 4 capital campaigns a year, kind of like in a consulting role, just for churches when they call or ask. I love church and I love learning from other churches, so when I come in and help people, one of the things that we do is we interview kind of donors and see like what donor trends are in the church. And one of the things that we learn in churches is a lot of the population say the pastor is either inaccessible or only has 3 or 4 friends, like couples, and we feel as though we don't really know them. So clear and compelling vision is important, but trust and leadership is just as important, and trust means, in my opinion, accessibility. So we'll touch a little bit on that in ways that you can be accessible. And then I think this is the most fun one, a sense that you're on the winning team, a sense that where you're going as a church is worthwhile, a sense of what you're doing is kingdom advancing, a sense that we're going places and we're changing the world and more people are coming to know Christ because of what we're doing. So these are the 3 things that I would say summarize my talk for today, and we'll kind of jump into each one. The next thing I'd say is discipleship. Discipleship is a huge, huge part of donor development. Discipleship to me is many different things. It could mean small groups. It could mean coming from like weekend teaching or a weekend message. I'm not going to spend tons of time on this because this is something we could talk about offline, but discipleship is a big part of it. And what I put on here is we use our annual report as a way to do discipleship. Our annual report is not a 50 or 60 page thing with numbers and P&L and all that kind of stuff. Our annual report is all about life change, and life change happens because of discipleship. So I just put our website up there. It's just kensingtonchurch.org/annual report. And we did like a 9-minute video with infographics and video and lots of different interviews of life change. So this is one of the ways that we use discipleship to impact givers and to kind of increase giving. And then a development director. This was the number one question I got from so many calls. I actually just had dinner last night with an awesome church in the Seattle area, in Bellevue. they were asking, but everyone's asking this, how do we do development in a church? I thought it was for like alumni of a college or a university, or I thought it was for the local food bank that's trying to raise money. What does a development director do? Can you send me your job description? All those type of things. So I actually don't know what I would tell you that the perfect development director does, but I wanted to just give you a rundown of kind of who I am. If you're into like Myers-Briggs or Strengths Finders or DISC, I think as an Enneagram. Anybody into Enneagram? Yeah. I'm 7. If y'all know, I heard yesterday that's like the cheerleader, but I don't know tons about Enneagrams, so I can't say that for sure. But I think I know I'm a 7, but I don't know how to describe myself that way. Myers-Briggs, I'm an ENFP, high extrovert. I'm intuitive. I'm a feeler, not a thinker, so I'm very emotional. And a P means big picture thinker, late to everything, and doesn't do checklists very well. Strengths finders are there, the DISC is there, but that's kind of who I am. If you want a copy of like my job description or something, of course I'd send that to you. But I think it's really interesting and unique in a church what a development director does. I have dinner all the time. That's why I never can lose weight. We're going out to dinner with people probably several nights a week, actually, with donors from the church. And it's not for financial asks. I probably ask one-on-one at dinner less than 10 times a year for a specific financial gift. What our job is, though, is to thank people and thank people and thank people and thank people and show when you give, here's how your giving's making an impact. So a lot of ROI. They're business terms, I realize, but churches are functioning in modern America, so we are, in a way, a business from this perspective. So it's a lot of thanking. It's not like kissing hands or kissing babies, shaking hands. It's not that kind of schmoozing, whining and dining. Not that at all. But one of the things that I think that I'll talk about for like me personally, or why I love what I do, is one of our major, probably top 3, top 5 givers at Kensington shared something extremely personal that happened in her family before she ever went to our pastors or to any of her friends. She called my wife and I. We were the very first people that she told about this that happened in her life, and it was emotional for her. It rocked her. It changed her. And I just think that is what a development director is. The trust has to be high because they have to believe in you. They have to believe that you are trustworthy and that you're kind of like the personal in for the church. They have a personal relationship with you. So that's something that I would say a development director is. What are we not? We're not always asking for money, although obviously our goal is always increasing giving. It's a lot of thinking and that. What should the focus be? Here's kind of where I'm going to land on these 5 things. Throughout the year, I have a development calendar that I run off of. It is actually pen and paper. It's maybe the only thing in my life, actually it's pencil and paper, that I still write in pencil because stuff changes all the time. I take it to meetings with me. But basically, our development office is scheduled a year out. So one of the things that I think is important is yes, there's definitely room for the Holy Spirit to be involved and for new opportunities to come up. But I think we can get so overwhelmed as a church, like, oh, this is a really great option. We should ask for money for it this weekend. Oh, we should do this. This new missionary is coming to us and they need $50 or $50,000 for something. We should do this. We do not do any of that because we have an organized, strategic, planned approach to giving, and our budget supports the things that we do because we have a clear and compelling vision. So a lot of the things that come to us are really, really great things in the world. We had to ask for something for veterans. Veterans are super important, and I personally believe in them and have friends and family that are veterans, but as a church, that is not what we have chosen to be a part of, so we did not do a financial ask for that, for example. So I think a calendar with a very clear strategy is really important here. But these are the 5 things that I kind of put on the calendar. New givers, major givers, doing marketing or return on investment type things, promoting online giving. Kensington, I do not say this to brag, but I say this because if you focus on it, I promise you it will increase. We have over 80% of our revenue come in electronically that we don't process with checks. One, that's really important because you don't have to have people and high touch with like checks and volunteers, and it takes a lot of time to do all that. But two, this is the thing I always talk to our finance director about, because he loves online giving because he knows our revenue has gone up, but he also fights with me a little bit about fees. And so if any of you in the room being finance or accounting people, okay, cool. So the thing with fees that I always throw it out the window with him because it drives me nuts. I'm not a finance person. Here's my example. If somebody gives $100 a week, let's say, to the church and writes you a check, that's $5,200 a year. Let's say they come to church. $5,200 a year, right? Anybody come to church 52 weeks a year? Or 51? Or 50? Here's where I'm going with that. There's snow days, especially in Michigan. There's sick days. There's kids' sick days. There's 2 or 3 weeks of vacation. There's a holiday. You're gone up north. Your mother-in-law's in town. You're tired. You don't go to church 52 times a year. And as a millennial, I definitely don't carry a checkbook. Or really cash. I very, very rarely have cash on me. What do I always have with me? My phone. And so electronic giving is so important for us to be involved in and engage in. And I know I don't have to convince you of that, but if your fight with your finance person, or if you are a finance person and your fight with your development or whomever is trying to get you to switch, my thing with that is those fees would maybe be $50, $70 a year if for $5,200. I don't know what it is. Again, I don't know the percentages, but it's maybe 50. It's less than 100, let's say, for sure, on $5,200 a year. Well, that means that person would come to church 51 times a year and write a check for $100 51 times a year and be there. They won't. So let them sign up for the $100 a week electronically, and you are guaranteed to have $5,200 in revenue for your church. I think online giving is really important. I wanted to give you a couple examples of things that we do for new givers. I realize this is not legible probably from where you're at, but we have examples up here of all of these. This is our first-time giver card. The first-time giver card goes out to people that have made a first-time gift to the general fund. We have lots of different ways that we engage millennials or people that are currently not on our giving radar, but the first time that somebody gives to the general fund, we actually call it the Kensington Fund. General fund sounds super boring, and nobody understands what it is. They think it pays the electric bill, but we all know in this room, it's the fuel that funds your whole church. So people are tied to the name of your church, which in our case is Kensington, and we call it the Kensington Fund. So you're giving to the fund that supports Kensington. People are really into that. So when they give to the church for the first time to the general fund, or the thing that supports all of us, they get this in the mail. They also get these inside of it. It is a decal, a magnet, and a card. The cool thing about these decals is it's become like swag around town. I know what that decal means. It means you've given to the church for the first time if I see it on somebody's car. But on that little card, everyone, our brand for kind of our church and giving and everything is everyone. Our mission statement is to see everyone transformed and mobilized by Jesus. The one is the Luke 15 passage of how the shepherd left the 99 to go after the one, and that's what Jesus does for all of us. And so we're always about reaching one for Christ. So that's kind of how we do our brand there. But what that one is on that bottom card, it says, hey, put this on your car as a constant reminder. Put this magnet on your fridge as a reminder of what you give to. Put the decal on the back of your laptop, so every single time you open your computer, you're seeing it. And for us, it's a reminder to people, because they know that they got this from giving. Hey, you are a giver. It's really important that you do this. I would say the second gift is the most important gift to a church. You can get a first-time gift, but what is going to get somebody to give again and to give recurring? Last year's session was a lot about how I engage people that don't give to try to get them to give for the first time. So I'm going to touch on that real quick, but if you want to talk about it or look at it, go back and watch last year's session. Basically, we do a lot of consumeristic type ways to give to get a first-time giver to give. Meaning, I think I have it on here. Yes. This was, I came into my session last year, and this church, Berean Baptist in Minneapolis, called me and said, can you come out and help us with donor development? So I went out there for a couple days, and they just sent me this right before Christmas, and they were like, we did this, and it was a success. So I was so excited. I said, can I put it up in my summit and summit slides? And they said, sure. So what this is, I said that all of us in the room, none of us could imagine going to school without a backpack, right? I mean, it's just something you all go to school with. Everybody has gifts or school supplies in it, and color pencils and crayons and binders. So one of the things that we do for first-time givers is we're saying we can't imagine anybody in our community going to school without a backpack. And we have school partners all around town. Each of our campuses partner with a school district. We get names and numbers of people that need backpacks or maybe come from a low-income area. And so we say, this drives from our office, not from our outreach office. We say, give $20 to a backpack. We'll fill a backpack, and it's going out to a kid. So they're getting marketing, and they're getting sent tons of emails, and it's showing up in their social media of give $20 to a backpack. It's simple, and I call it consumeristic because none of us we can feel, taste, and touch it. We all can relate to a backpack. But then once they give, they're getting separate thank yous with ROI. When you gave your $20 this year, we ended up having 4,831 backpacks distributed all around town. And we had 82,000 boxes of colored pencils. And we had blah, 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 blah. So people feel like they're part of a winning team or part of a bigger thing. So this is something that Berean did. I don't remember their exact numbers, but I know they had a huge increase in first-time givers. So the point of backpacks, in Kensington's case at least, is not to get Michelle and I to give $20. We can if we want. The point is to get somebody to give for the first time because they're never going to give to a fund that they don't understand called the general fund. But if we can get them on our radar for giving, then we can market to them and communicate with them to say, when you give, here's how your giving is impacting people or reaching people, and so would you consider giving again? And we have a process that we take people through. So that's the first-time giver thing. Major givers. People don't usually like this word because a lot of people think, oh, you can't single out a major giver. That's not good. Well, everybody's a giver and everybody's important, but do you do volunteer weekends? Do you do weekends where you're celebrating your volunteers? Do you do weekends where you celebrate your small group leaders or retreats for student ministries leaders? Well, you're singling them out as well. And so I would say giving is a fruit of the Spirit, is a financial or a spiritual gift, and it is something that we should definitely talk about. Not more than anything else, but it's not something we should shy away from. I feel like we always think, oh, if we're going to bring up money, people are not going to come to this church. That's not the case because again, in this capital campaign kind of consulting that I've done, we ask people questions about the church that they attend, and we say, hey, the church that you attend, do you think that they talk about giving too much, not enough, not at all, whatever? And the answer at every single church I've ever worked with is they don't teach on it. They talk about it, but they don't teach on it. People are dying to know what Jesus has to say about money, and I'll tell you, he has a lot to say about it because it's the single most covered topic in the Bible other than the kingdom of God. Money, possessions, wealth, single most important topic, obviously, to Jesus, because I think he knew it was going to be close to our hearts and something that we struggle with. So I think it's really important that we engage with major givers. I don't know if it's true at your church. Every church I've worked with, this is true, and it's very true at Kensington. 80% of the giving comes from 20% of the people. Is that true? Yes. That's what I find. I think it's interesting. But if you're relying on 80% of your revenue and income from 20% of your people, well, in this area of stewardship and financial generosity, then you have about only 20% of your people to focus on in major givers. So one of the things that we do is, I have several examples of these, but we send out, this is where I'm going to go down to like 10,000 feet and get a little detailed with you. Every 2 months, we print one of these. It's a major giver card, so let's just pretend, I know this one happened to be August and September of 2017. That's somebody on our stage singing, worship during one of our services. And then the copy inside the card is thanking people for giving because when you give, you're allowing us to have weekend services which reach 15,000 people, which is the way that we reach the one with the message of Jesus. Every weekend, if we have 15,000 people coming in, somebody's hearing about Jesus new. And so thank you for giving. That's how you're reaching the one. The next one was one that we did for like spring serve. So let's say this is March and April. This would go out to anybody at Kensington. This is how we do it. You have to make your own rules for your church. But at Kensington, this would go out to anybody who has given $1,000 in a one-time sitting during those 2 months. That's how we've chosen to do it. It doesn't mean that that's the right way. We used to do it that it was more than $2,500. We were like, why are we doing $2,500? Let's lower it to just thank people. There's no ask in it. It's just a thank you. So this was something that we said, your generous giving helps us reach people in our communities all over Metro Detroit, Traverse City, and Orlando, Florida. For our annual Spring Serve initiative, we served our school partners and families in need at each school district through indoor and outdoor projects, painting, landscaping, blah, blah, blah. It was an opportunity to move out as an act of our hands and feet of Jesus by providing necessary improvements for families, teachers, administration, and students. Because of your open-handed living, we are able to show the love of Jesus to thousands of people all over our communities and in our own backyard, all throughout our communities and in our own backyard. It's just a thank you. Who wouldn't want to get that? Here's what we do. So if you give, let's say, $1,000 on the first of every month, you would get this on January 1st and March 1st and May 1st and July 1st and September 1st, because we do them every 2 months, and we don't want them to seem systematic. So you're getting a new one every 2 months. This is the March-April card. Then there would be a June-July card. Yeah?
Sorry, quick question. Is there a reason why you're going with a one-time gift versus like $1,000 in that period?
Yeah, we have a totally different strategy for that. Because, for example, I work for a church. We all know that I don't give $1,000 in a one-time sitting, but we would hit $1,000 at some point throughout the year, obviously. So we have a different strategy for like cumulative giving, and that's not related to major giving. Yep, great question. So here's a couple other cards that I put up there. Oh, nope, I'm switching to one. Sorry, totally separate thing for major givers. This is something that we've tried only 2 years. It's been really successful. I wasn't sure about it. We did a Merry Christmas card. I'm going to show you what we sent them this year. It was a little ceramic Christmas ornament. On the front and back, it had our 10 global partners that we partner with around the world. Everybody in our congregation knows what we do there. So we literally just bought a little ceramic thing, put 10 dots on the map, and then a little thank you like tag that hung off that said, thanks for investing in the one around the globe. This here, our pastor at their campus, whoever they go in here on Sundays, signed this to them and then wrote like 2 or 3 lines on it. So, dear Jim and Sue, thanks so much for being in this year. We couldn't do this without you. And again, it just says, your generous giving brings the message of Jesus to 8 campuses, communities, and 10 global partnerships. Thanks for reaching the one with the gospel message, caring for the sick, bringing joy to children, reaching the marginalized, training the next generation of Jesus followers. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for giving sacrificially, living open-handedly, and investing the one here and around the world. It's your generosity that makes all this possible. Simple, right? But they get acknowledged for giving because it's something that they have chosen to make a commitment to in their life. I'm going to back up real quick and just say about the major giver cards also. The teaching pastor at their campus also personally signs these and usually writes 1 to 2 sentences on it. It doesn't just go out as a blank card like this, but we have a way of a system within our church to get these out to them. We get them out on Tuesday afternoons, and they get them back to us by Wednesday afternoon, and they go in the mail Wednesday before we leave. So it's a real quick turnaround. We think that it's really important to thank people and get it out real quick. We hand address the envelopes for these. Hand addressing is really important to us. We do not use labels. It's just something that we've chosen to do because we think it seems personalized. And we also put stamps on them. We don't run it through the postage machine. Next, what should the focus be? Should we start with marketing and ROI? This was another one that I got tons of questions on, but I wanted to give you some practical examples here. These were 2 of the things that we did throughout the year. This was like 2012, and then this one was maybe a year or 2 ago. It's really easy to do. Everyone loves infographics. It's easy to read, it's quick, you don't have to sit down and read it, it's like you get it or you see it online somehow, but it's just ways that giving makes an impact. Number of people, peak number of attendance, number of small groups, number of baptisms, and then there's something that goes with it to say, because of your faithful generosity, all of this is possible. So I say that is ROI. You're connecting their investment with the return of people and numbers. Make sense? 2012 was a little bit more copy, and we just obviously went away from that, but we've done tons of different things. How many of you send out giving statements? Let's see this. How many send them out once a year? Twice a year? Any more than twice a year? Oh, wow. How often? Quarterly? Okay. So we just switched to doing quarterly 4 or 5 years ago. One of the things as a millennial I was completely wrong about, my boss is not a millennial, and he was like, let's include envelopes in our giving statements. And I was like, who uses checks anymore? And we know not many people do, but what we have found that the checks or the envelopes do is it's still a trigger reminder in somebody's mind for giving. So when somebody gets that statement, we do them quarterly now. We used to do them annually, and we realized nobody thinks about how much they're giving to the church unless you put their number in front of them. This year, we as of the end of March, we do it quarterly as well. So they'll get them the beginning of April. This year, we've given $1,000. Well, in the first 3 months, have you only made $10,000? We're not saying that to people, obviously, but by putting the number in front of them, it's a constant reminder of, this is how much I've given. So then when we go to, we don't do one in the end of September. We do it the end of November, though, going into year-end giving as like a last month reminder. And that's usually the time where people are like, oh, yeah, I'm pretty behind, or I missed the summer, or my credit card number changed because I had fraud on it and I never let the church know, or whatever. So that's why we do them quarterly. We do put an envelope in it, and then this is a card that we put inside of it as well. This is a lot of copy, in my opinion. We typically do something like you saw on the last slide, where it's a little bit more numbers and facts-driven. But the thing about doing statements is, don't look at them as a function of your accounting office. Yes, there is a sheet in there that has to do with giving, but it is more a function of showing return on investment, and it is a function of marketing. It's not a function of numbers. You have to put them in. You can put a bulk rate on them. We do. But we always use them as a way to communicate something. So it also makes people open them because they know that every time they're going to get something different in their statement. So that's one example. We do tons of different stuff. Online giving, I talked a lot of, yeah, go ahead. We send it to all givers. It's our personal decision. Yep. No, the past year. Yep. Anybody in like a capital campaign or some sort of like annual campaign at your church? Yeah, some. The other thing with doing quarterly statements is making sure that you have on those statements what their pledge amount is, what their pledge balance is, what their current amount that they've given to that pledge is, because most people don't pay attention to that or keep up with that as well. We do that with the quarterly statements, but we'll even sometimes send like an extra email every so often where it's just 3 or 4 lines of text. Hey, just wanted to thank you for your giving. It looks personalized, but I'll say like, your pledge is X, your giving to date is this, and your pledge balance is this. It just keeps it in front of people's minds because they're not thinking about their church's giving throughout the week. Yeah?
I know this is a question my accountant would ask.
Mm-hmm.
How many times at the end of the year, when tax season comes around, you have people calling you saying, I need the yearly statement because I threw out all the quarterly things?
Yeah, we have it a lot. Let's talk afterwards about that because we have that question a lot. Online giving. Like I said, we believe online giving is really important. I talked about the numbers of it, but we actually choose to do e-giving month. We have made it into like a little branded thing. People know it's coming. We do it strategically. Again, this is on my development calendar, but we do it in May and November. This is one that we did, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Imagine this is an envelope coming in the mail. It's a clear yellow envelope. You can see that there's 3 things inside of it. Some glasses, some sunglasses, a beach ball, and a flipper. I don't know if you can tell that's a flipper, but it's a flipper. So in the spring, we've kind of branded Spring e-Giving Month as don't let your giving take a vacation, or don't hit the beach till you hit kensingtonchurch.org, or now we say till you hit our app. So then on the back, we'll give them 3 ways to give, to set up giving for recurring all summer. This has helped probably more than anything else in driving revenue for recurring giving. So I would tell you, I don't know if I put another one on there. I didn't. I would tell you that we do this in May and November. Again, it's right before the summer slump. Anybody still experience a summer slump of giving? I would say some churches don't. I heard even last night that they don't anymore. But we don't have a summer slump in giving because recurring is so just part of our DNA now. I will tell you this, though. I started at Kensington almost 12 years ago. None of this was going on before. None of it. So don't feel like, oh gosh, we're so behind the times, or who's ever going to do this. This has been over the course of 12 years of ramping up more and more for giving, because we're realizing that the more we put into it, the more we're getting back. Some of my staff members think, oh, giving gets a lot of attention around the church, and I would tell you, well, then you need to work really hard to make sure that small groups gets just as much attention, or you need to work really hard to make sure kids ministry does, because I'm working on giving, and you've got to work on your respective area. Another thing that we do is just randomly, this is probably, I'd say 3 to 4 times a year. It's not necessarily spread out evenly, but we highlight different people either in our congregation or on our church's staff to tell them a story. This happens to be somebody in our congregation, Alice. No offense to anyone in the room, I'm just going to be strategic in saying we chose somebody of her age demographic, because we're talking to people that don't currently use electronic giving in her specific case. In some of the cases, like one of the cases, you'll use somebody on our staff. Her name is Kristen. She's our production director for one of our campuses. No one would know who Kristen is because she's behind the scenes in everything that we do on Sunday mornings. But we said, meet Kristen Twilla. Kristen is the production director here, and every morning she arrives at 5:30 to ensure that the lights are set up and the sound is set up. But what she's really arriving for is to make sure that the one that comes to church is having a great experience with who we are, so that the Holy Spirit and Jesus is able to reach them. That's a little bit what the video was about yesterday in the afternoon. That's what Kristen's job is. So what we're doing is saying, when you give to Kensington, yes, you're giving to lights and sound, because people think that that's, we kind of overdo it with that. But what is lights and sound? It's a way to reach people. And then Kristen, when she wrote up her little blurb, which is just a front and back postcard like this is just a postcard. I know it looks weird. You're like, what? It's okay. The post office takes it with the address at the top. Kristen's story was on where the Alice's giving side is, and then on the other side, Kristen came up with a sign that we now have at all of our campuses, and it's just a sign that sits backstage before any of our musicians, any of our actors or dancers, or anybody goes out on stage, and it says, today is someone's first day. So it's a reminder to everybody that goes out there, you have only one chance to reach somebody that's stepping in our doors today. So what a great visual for people to think, when I give, Kristen's story and her job is important, and it's a part of it. Alice's story was just about how she chose to start doing electronic giving and why it's become rather a tipping thing, like, oh, whatever I had left over every month I was giving because I wasn't intentional, to now I am intentional through recurring giving. And that's just the story that she told there. Next, relationships. This is the key and fundamental thing for all giving. It is systematic, it is strategic, it is calendared, but more than anything, it is relational. I said, like, lots of different questions. Another one that I got is, what would you start with? There's so much here. Where would you start with this? I would tell you relationships is the place to start, and if you did only one thing in the next year, it's what I call a celebration dinner. You can call it whatever you want. I know internally that my team invites financial givers and volunteers. When people receive the invitation, they don't know what they're getting or how they got on a list, and we don't talk about money. We don't talk about giving. We don't talk about asking. This is an invitation we sent out probably 5 or 7 years ago. Please tell us you can make it. And then on the inside it says, we're all ears. And then there's just a quick invitation. This year we chose to do it at somebody's home, but let me just read what the invite says, because you'd never think that it's giving related. It says, Kevin Valentine, who's one of our teachers at our Orlando campus, invites you to attend a small dinner to celebrate a great year and look towards the future with him and other close friends from the Orlando campus. Dinner's on us, so come hungry on such and such date at time. We'll be out by 8:30. Don't worry about sending an RSVP. We'll email you to confirm you're coming. And it was at somebody's home. There's the address. No childcare provided. Nothing about giving there. When people show up, they do dinner, they socialize, and we tell them right away. We're not, right when we start, before dinner, we say, we're not selling you spatulas, we're not trying to get something from you. You're in the room because you're a financial giver or you're a volunteer, and this is our chance to say thank you to you and show you some of the things from the past year that we've done and some of the things in the next year that we hope to do. That's promoting trust and leadership. That's making a big church feel small. That's, I would say, the most important thing that you do. And they're almost free. Some years we do them at like banquet centers, but in this case we did it at somebody's home. Some years we've even done, like when Detroit hit a bad recession and we didn't have any money to do anything like this, we did it as just potluck, and people loved that. So you can do it however you want. This past year we happened to do them in country clubs, but it's all sorts of it. It's a quick invite. We hand address the envelopes, put a stamp on it, and they go out in the mail. And we now, this is not where we started, but we now do over 40 of these a year. So it's a lot of outings, it's a lot of planning. Yeah?
What's your ideal size for one of these?
30 people. This year, because we did them at country clubs and because of many different factors, like I was taking 2 big trips outside the country, I had like 75 or 80 people in the room, and it's too big because it doesn't feel personal, but we still were able to convey the information we wanted to talk about, celebrate the year and past, kind of give people a sneak peek into what's to come.
So across all 8 campuses you did 30?
Yes.
And your lead pastor was expected, the campus pastor was expected to do.
Yep. And this is what I'd say, our founding pastor, who does not speak, and none of you in the room probably would ever hear of him, he comes to every single one. And one of the reasons he's come, he has said over the years, for the first 20 years of leading this church, I thought that I was always meeting with people that were complaining and upset about something, and I felt like I was always having to, smooth things over. And he was like, instead, I've realized that these give me more life, and these are the people that are on mission with us, and I would rather be at this any day than at any, if somebody's not happy, they don't have to stay here. But these people love this place and are on mission with us, and I want to invest with them. This was the one that we did for this year. It's just a postcard. We stuck it in an envelope, celebrate, and then the back. It's super simple. I'd love for you to join me for a small dinner gathering. We always say we will email you to confirm your attendance, because asking people in a busy world to RSVP is almost impossible. But if you send out a quick email, it's 3 sentences. It comes from the pastor, even though my team's doing it. In the case of last one, Kevin Valentine, hey, just wanted to check that you received my invitation in the mail. Let me know if you can come. Reply yes or no. That's simple. Our team has to deal with the back end of it, and it is a lot of work, but who's not going to click reply on their iPhone and just say yes? We get really great turnout for it. And then when should we talk about giving? I put 3 different options here. A lot of people have lots of different ways that they talk about giving during an Easter offering, during Thanksgiving Eve, all different things. How many churches still do like an annual campaign of like, hey, tell us how much you plan to give in the next year for budgetary reasons? Does anyone do that? Yeah, a lot of people. We do annual campaigns definitely throughout the year, like the next one, I think This was an annual campaign that we did last year. Does the branding look somewhat familiar? Looks like Whole 30. We called it the Whole 90, and it was basically a tithe challenge. We do a tithe challenge maybe every 4 to 5 years. What we do for a tithe challenge is we tell people that if they give 10% for 90 days and they don't experience Jesus somehow, we'll give them all their money back. No questions asked. A lot of churches choose to do this but remove that money back guarantee, and I would tell you I don't really know how that's any different than what you're always doing, because you don't always do the money back guarantee and people choose not to give to you then. So unless you have some incentive to say, Malachi tells us, test God. So I'm telling you, you can challenge your people to test God, and you can say we'll give you your money back. We've probably done this 3 or 4 times now since I've been there. We've had 4 people ever ask for their money back. We gave it back right away, and it was all extenuating circumstances. It was limb fell on our house, and we had a $4,800 bill and didn't have house insurance. Of course, here's your money, and can we help you fix your house? It's so much not about the money, because nobody asks for it back. I will tell you, engagement during that 90 days is really important. We had our lead pastors write what I called like a devotional, but basically an encouragement email with scripture, and we sent it out every Saturday morning. And the number of people that replied, like the first week we maybe had 10 or 20 people reply just like, oh, this email's cool. By the end, we were having hundreds of responses to this email because people want to be taught about what God thinks about giving and why money and power and possessions is important. So our pastors, each one only had to write one because it was 90 days. So we had some of their wives write them, but we would send them out on Saturday mornings, and they were awesome. So stay engaged with your people. Our giving has skyrocketed because of this. Obviously, it is something of my office, but like I said, from my office is also discipleship, which is way more than just we want more money. It's how does Jesus see this topic? So Whole 90, this was the inside of that card. It's a lot of copy. It talks about the money back guarantee. The thing that we made every single person in the room do, we do this with the app, but we also do it on paper. The very bottom part is a tear off, and you can see the actual one up here, but where it says our challenge, I don't know if you can see it on the very bottom there. We had every single person in the room fill it out, and bring it up to the stage, and they dropped it in like a chest at the base of the cross. And what that does is it forces engagement. It forces people to make a decision. And one of the 5 options there is, I choose not to give at this time. And that is a totally fine decision. The top option is, yes, I'm in 90 days, 10%. But one of the options is, I'm going to choose to give for the first time. Or I'm going to increase my giving by blank percent. Or we're already giving 10%, we're still in. So everybody in the room has an option here to check a box, but it forces somebody to really engage with Jesus. If you're married, engage with your spouse. Talk about this really important topic for 3 or 4 weeks. We do videos for it and everything. And then on the 4th week, you bring this up and drop it at the foot of the cross. A Christmas campaign. This we have done forever. I think a lot of churches do Christmas campaigns. We call them year-end giving. Donors tend to think about giving more at the end of the year than any other time of the year. If you don't know that, just turn on the TV and listen to the Sarah McLachlan commercials for the Humane Society. Our alma maters seem to send us a lot of stuff. I always stack up envelopes on our table of all the different places asking for money. Salvation Army, United Way, Red Cross, they all send you stuff, right? Some of them send return address labels with it. Whatever they send, it all comes up. But we as a church don't ask about it. We don't include year-end giving as an appeal. And I'm saying our congregation lives in the same world that we live in, and they're hearing the same asks that we're hearing. So if us as a church don't choose to engage in asking people for money at the end of the year, the money's going to go somewhere else. For tax reasons, a lot of major givers have to get rid of a certain amount of money every year. So ask for donations. And you have 52 opportunities a year to show how their giving's making an impact. Whereas the United Way maybe has 1, or you hear a bell that you walk by for the Salvation Army. That's the only impact you have with that organization. So if you're doing a great job all year long, your year-end giving campaign is a slam dunk. We call it a year-end Christmas gift. This was ours this year. We do like a printed book on it. Inside the front cover every year, we have the same exact quote, and it says, when you make a year-end Christmas gift to Kensington, you're impacting your neighbors down the street and your friends around the world. Here's how and where your financial giving makes an impact. It's the same thing. It's a blank page. This year it was a red page with white lettering. That's all that was there. And then as you flip through the book, you see awesome photography with very little copy. And the copy here, one of our global partners is in Kenya. It says, your financial partnership reaches God's children in Kenya. Working with POCA Outreach Ministries, we holistically aid in the physical and spiritual needs of more than 1 million people living in Western Kenya. In Kenya, we actually do exactly what Charity Water does. There was about 10,000 people in the Pokot region that had access to clean water, and now through our partnership there's 1.3 million people there, and we have water and dug wells because of Christmas to almost 700,000 people. So this is a big deal for us. It's one of the many things that we do. Short-term trips. How many of you do like mission trips or serving projects somewhere? Yeah, put it in there. Your giving allows us to send people to 19 locations across the globe. Church planting. We've started 58 new churches. Buildings and facilities. It's a huge expense. We all know that it's a huge expense. People realize that they come to a building or a rented facility for church. So put it in there. Your giving is what allows us to allows our campuses to reach our communities. Your church is more than brick walls and big stages. We invest in spaces that make campuses feel welcoming to visitors and home to regular attenders. People know that, so they know that we have to do money there. This one we did a little different this year. We actually put dollar amounts in the back of the book to say, like, basically my goal in doing this was any gift amount makes a difference. $7 does this. $85 helps pay an electric bill. Whatever, all the way up to major gift amounts. So we put that right in the back. And then we have an action step page. We still put an envelope in because it's kind of a peel out reminder. The app is our big way to send push notifications to people. So I do promote Pushpay a little bit because that has been our way to reach people for this. And then a capital campaign. There's always, people say, why do you always do so many capital campaigns? It's a 3-year campaign and we do one every 6 years. So we give them 3 years on, 3 years off. Capital campaigns are a really great way to teach about financial stewardship. It's a great way to teach generosity. It's a great way to teach over and above giving. Why do you support over and above giving? So here's just a campaign that we recently did. We kind of talk about campaigns in 3 parts, which are a vision for the future. Why are you doing a campaign? Even if it's a debt reduction campaign. How many of you have done a debt reduction campaign? They're not fun. They're horrible. But if you're able to sell and teach that a debt reduction campaign is what allows us as a church to set our next generation up to be successful, it's a brilliant campaign, and anybody would get beyond that. So we have three ways that we teach on campaigning. It's a vision for the future. It's a detailed look at the projects and plans. Some people want to know all the details, how many square feet, how many parking lots, how many bathrooms, all that kind of stuff. And then a practical way to get involved. Here's what we're going to ask you to do. We're going to ask you to make a pledge. Here's what a pledge process looks like. Here's prayers, how to ask Jesus. What amount are we going to do? How to talk to your spouse about it. So there's 3 options there. I just wanted to end to put this up on the screen again and show you kind of the 3 things. Everything that you just saw, all my different little examples and pictures have 3 goals. Clear and compelling vision, trust in leadership, and a sense that you're on a winning team. Once we're doing that, so the celebration dinners, it covers 2 of those goals. Our year-end giving, when you see all that your giving goes to, it feels like you're on a winning team. And I think, too, like just getting a thank you card is trust in leadership. It makes a big church feel small.